Any questions on today's practice?
So when y'all were doing 2-minute there, was that no timeouts trying to get a field goal range?
Yeah, what we did a little differently is that was the end of the first half. So every half ends that way. So when we typically do end of game, there's a need 3 or need 7. End of half, you really are looking to score, period. So it was end of half, no timeouts, end of half, 1 timeout. Just the idea, the understanding that the half tries to get extended. You know, if I feel like our defense gets a stop and the clock's running, I might use a timeout to try to get another possession. So all of it was end of the second quarter.
And Sean, looking at that scenario, I think it was 16.9 seconds. When is the cutoff that if you're a defensive player that you cannot let them get out of bounds, and if it's inbounds, they won't have time to get their field goal team out?
We look at 16 to 17 seconds. We feel like we can get a field goal unit on the field. South of that, you're going to run out of time. And that's a whole different, situation.
Right.
But nonetheless, the idea that for a lot of these younger players, we're in the second quarter. There's under a minute left or 2 minutes left. Someone's going to be in 2-minute offense each game. No one's in the 4-minute. You can't always guarantee it at the end of a game, but someone's going to be in a 2-minute offense at the end of the half.
Do you,
No.
do you traditionally have like checkpoints? Have you done this for so long? Like what you want to see in the first preseason game, second preseason game, third preseason game, or does it vary from team
Well,
to team?
I think to some degree, I think to some degree we do. And then there are some things that maybe deviate or change. It might be the health of certain players. We'll have more players healthy for this game than we did for Jacksonville. And then there'll be certain goals for the game. When we meet, man, we'd like to see these 8 players playing earlier to get a good evaluation. We'd like to see, and that can vary each year based on who the players are. But there are some things that year to year don't change as much, and then certainly with your own personnel, there are some variables.
Your evaluation of Trey Hendrickson so far, what would you say is different about him this year than last year?
Well, look, he's got a good grasp as to what we're doing. He's stronger. Fortunately right now he's healthy, and you feel him. There's a presence to him, and I think that he, in his second year now, knowing what we're doing, has begun to do we've seen some really good things in practice. So hopefully that can continue. But he's played well.
So how's late translated from tight end to tackle? How's that transition been for him?
I think it's been good, and yet, it's a difficult switch. He's a developmental guy that I think has gotten better. He's begun to carry a little bit more weight. He's linear, and so there's some strengths to that, and then there are also some challenges with pad level and that he's working through. But for him, I think it's it's going to be important. The long picture in regards to each off season, each practice. You take a small outlook, or you could take a larger. Is going to be just a steady improvement. But I think he's gotten more and more comfortable. The key is his strength relative to some of the guys he's playing against. So when he gets someone that's powerful, it becomes, a lot more challenging just because of his anchor. So, but he's a developmental player, and he's competing.
Sean, how important has the offensive line been to sort of the reshaping of the roster over the last 3 years, and how intentional was it? You've made some pretty significant investments there.
Yeah, I think, look, you've heard me say this before. I think it's a position group that permeates your team. I think it's one of the more, if not the most important position group. There's so much they're responsible for. They can bring an attitude to your team. They can, and that can kind of permeate through the locker room. And I think that obviously they're smart. There's a toughness element to them. And I think that, generally when you look at a good football team, you're seeing a team that's got a good offensive line, and both with the protection and also the running game. And there's a lot that goes into it. So I think it's obviously a position group that we feel strongly about, whether it's in free agency or in the draft, using resources to improve.
Was there something very deliberate though? 15 was a year where you guys really started making some roster changes. That was the year you traded for.
Well, we didn't. I don't. Look, there've been incremental steps to it. You know, the draft selection of Ryan Ramczyk, that comes, you know, as he's available with our second first-round pick. You know, going out and finding Larry Warford from Detroit. You know, we felt we needed a guard. So it's each year there is this vision as to the whole picture, but I think it is a group that we put resources into, and we feel like you need to.
Sean, when you say that Trey's, you can feel him. Did you feel like that feistiness was something that was going to transfer from college to here?
Well, you saw toughness with the player, and that's a great trait. You know, there's a physical presence to him, and look, it's not necessarily the feistiness. It's how a player plays between the whistles, and you know, can he defend the run? You know, can he affect the passer? Do we consider him a pressure player or not? You know, what are the things that we think he does very well, and then let's try to do those things. So I think in year two that you know, he's a guy that's in the mix definitely for playing.
Sean, when you're looking improving on third down offense and defense, what would you say is the number one thing? Obviously execution, but is it film study, maybe knowing your opponent, what they want to do offensively and vice versa?
Well, I think offensively, there's a handful of things that go into that. You know, you're going to have to be able to separate from man-to-man tight coverage, you know, especially on the early third downs, 3rd and 2, 3, 4. You generally are going to have, you know, smart players that understand coverage, and when coverages change, your protection's extremely important, and you've got to have a third down running back that you feel like can handle the pressure. Defensively, it's contesting those throws. It's having it's having a grasp as to the down and distance and understanding what the opponent's trying to do. But it's technique, it's fundamentals, and you know, it's awareness as to the down and the distance and what we're trying to take away, and then, you know, where is it weak.
Coach, going back to those the third 2-minute drills there, we saw you speaking to defense. As a coach, how do you balance you wanting the defense to get that stop there? I think it was after the throw to Thomas.
Yeah.
Coaching the offense, wanting them to get field goal range there. Is that ever difficult?
Yeah, I mean, look, at times, you know, if one side of the ball or the other doesn't practice particularly well and the other side does, there's a part of you that's frustrated and yet encouraged with the performance of the other side. But it's a teaching situation, and, you know, with the time left on the clock, understanding a chunk play is what we can't give up. The underneath throws are what we want to give up, and you know, we got baited there for an underneath throw, and a ball went in behind. And if you're looking at the clock and you're saying, wait a minute, we back up, blew a whistle. Here's how much time's left in the game. Let's let them throw that underneath throw 8 times in a row.
Was it as simple as that play? Sorry.
Yeah.
Was it as simple as that play? Just,
yeah, that was an example of just football awareness. You know, that we have to understand where the clock was. I think we were inside of 35 seconds. So it's just plain smart. Whether that's an offensive mistake or a defensive mistake, that either one of those I'm responsible for.
Sean, will Drew play in this preseason game?
We'll see.
How good was that Davenport back out there today?
It's good. You know, the news we're hearing is real good, and so he's going to be kind of ramping up and accelerated with regards to getting back on the field. That's encouraging.
Probably not ready though for.
We'll see. Anything else? All right, thank you.